Welcome to the Political Ferret Show. New content will be uploaded every Wednesday and Sunday. This video was financed by my Patreons. Thank you for making the change possible. If you are a channel regular, you know that I'm a little bit obsessed with the Borg in Star Trek, and there was this question if in the center of every Borg cube there is a ship. That the Borg just go out and then take over ships and then create out of these ships Borg cubes, so that in the center of every Borg cube is in essence a ship from somebody else. And the idea is not as stupid, but if we want to talk about that, we have to talk about something else, and that is replication, because a lot of people say, oh, this is absolutely easy to do because they just have to replicate the stuff over and over and over again. And I want to point out that this is not how the real world works, and this also not how the Star Trek world works. So we have to go a little bit into the lore around that. So first we have to address the replicating system. To call the replicating system a little wave with the hand or a massive plot hole would both be a massive understatement. Pretty much the replicating system destroys a lot of what makes Star Trek interesting, because you can answer a lot of these things with one of two things: beam something or replicate something. And they do this from time to time. They beam from time to time photon torpedoes, which makes sense because they are way faster at your target than when you shoot at them. So why don't they do this the whole time? On the other hand, they replicate non-stop things, but even though they then have say, okay, we have to trade because some things can't be replicated. What can't be replicated? We see extraordinary complicated stuff replicated, like human beings from time to time. They do not work for long, but they work for a time. So it is unclear. It is absolutely unclear, and it destroys a lot of the flair of Star Trek from my point of view. But the next question is, if they do that, why does not Star Trek, why does not the Federation do the whole thing? I mean, I just take a shuttle with a replicator on board and then I create my own spaceship. Why do they have spaceports? Why do they have things to put this into place? Why do they have mines and so on? So why don't they do that? And the answer is pretty simple, but again, there is Voyager, and Voyager destroys a lot of the things again. I mean, they replicate starships all the time. They create Delta Flyers non-stop and shuttles non-stop because they crash it in every other episode. So a lot of this thing has to be replicated because, yes, there is some lore that there is a makeshift refinery somewhere on board where they can pretty much create aluminium and steel and things they use, or I don't know what they put into that for a hull. But they often say some things can be replicated and other things cannot be replicated, and it is absolutely unclear why this is. But I want to point out why the whole thing of replication is pretty much stupid. So if we talk about something that really exists, about a 3D printer. Yes, this thing is a 3D printer. I know it's not the most good looking printer that I ever created, but however, when you say you have now your filament on the one side, this is your raw material, and your printer on the other side, and then you print with this thing, you have now the thing that you really wanted, but you have now less raw material anymore, but you still have on your table 10 kilograms. And this is wrong, because you had to give energy into this whole system so that the 3D printer can create matter out of this raw material, which means that you have now more than 10 kilograms on your table. We know this M is E by C squared, which means that the matter of the energy, because C is very big, and if you have a lot of energy, the mass is very tiny. So you do not have a lot more mass now on your table, but you have some more mass on the table, because you have to take into consideration that you put energy into that, and energy has mass too, which means that the equivalent of mass of the printer before it started to print it and after it started to print is only then exactly the same if you calculate the energies that are involved into the whole process into that, which again is absolutely not interesting if we talk about the 3D printer, because you do not need a lot of energy, and this not a lot of energy has very, very tiny mass, and you will not see the difference. But if we talk about something like creating a starship out of energy, we have to state that the energy inside this shuttle before they replicated a whole spaceship out of that is the same, which means that this thing has a ton, a gigaton, a mega, yeah, I don't know how much, a lot of energy into that. So you have an energy density into your little space shuttle that is absolutely ludicrous. But only then it works. You have to bring the energy, and you have to bring so much energy that it would make more sense to bring a spaceship in the first place, because you do not have to go around to create matter out of energy and energy out of matter. So this, I would point out that in Star Trek we know that there are mines. They mine stuff, and they have factories to a degree. A lot of them looks to be automatized, but they have them, and they produce things that will then be used for something else. In DS9 it's the self-sealing stem bolts that come up all the time. Somebody creates in a factory these bolt thingies, and they are then used in, I don't know, nobody tells me where to use them. And then they bring this to the shipyards, and then they create ships out of that. So they do not go to an asteroid, convert it into energy, ship the energy over to a little shuttle, and the little shuttle creates then the ship. They do not do that, and it makes sense to not do that because it is a silly concept. It is the same silly concept as the transporters. As I said before, Star Trek would be so much nicer if they had no transporter systems and no replicators, which is in essence pretty much the same technology, but whatever. Again, if you have a spaceship and you want to feed your people because you went not into transhumanism and made not cyborgs out of your people that just go to the next plug and hold the energy out there, but you want still humans around who eat strawberries, you have then to create something like hydroponics on your ship, and this is not hard. And as it was portrayed in Voyager, where you have one shelf with some plants on it and one guy who takes care for these plants, is silly. You can do this by robots, and you should do this by robots, because it makes no sense to do it anyhow else. So, but back to the Borg. So if the Borg now in their glorious mission to free the galaxy of everybody that is not Borg, they have now two possibilities. They can take over one of these ships and make it the core, or they can create a core in a factory, and this core then is a mobile factory. So you can pretty much on the run, if you are just one lonely drone but you are able to take over one ship, you can create your own mobile factory, or you take the freshly produced mobile factory out of the Borg factory and then go your way. So you fly now into the space, and what do? Well, you take into stuff. And then you create out of the stuff, be this asteroids or be this spaceships or something like that, you create then your Borg cube, which is a good idea because you started with a very, very tiny thingy with a mobile factory, and then you ended up with a, well, warship, which is not a bad thing. But it makes no sense to say, oh, we just take some magic material, make energy out of that, and then we replicate all these things. It makes way more sense to take materials in, and it makes way more sense to take asteroids in than spaceships. Why? Because asteroids do not fight back, and you can say, okay, I need more gold, so I go over there where there are gold. I need more copper, I go over where there is more copper. I need something like that, I go over there. Spaceship will never have the right material that you need right now, and as I stated before, they shoot back, which is not always a good idea, even if you are a Borg. So the thing around the Borg that I want to address at this more or less final point, that the idea that we start from scratch with something and then we convert it and then we convert it even more, and in the end it looks like something that was intended to look like it in the first place, is something that we humans do. We start often with something that is not intended to use for something that we then use it for, and then we modify it and we modify it even more, and in the end we say, okay, now we can make the whole thing nice, and we put a casing around that and say, okay, it was intended to do something like that. And then something funny happens, they then copy that, and you copy the whole mess. And I would not go into that. So the argument before was that pretty much all the things that we see from the Borgs are the same thing. It's the same thing that will go eventually the way of everything towards the Borg tactical cube, the Borg hypercube or something like that. But it will grow and grow and grow as the collective grows and grows and grows. And as we know, the collective must grow. They want to expand, they want to take over everything, they want the galactic revolution and to free all the people from evil capitalists and evil individualism and so on. So the great mission is, of course, the great revolution, the revolution of the Borg drone that shall be freed. And so, yeah. So thanks for watching, like, share and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.